Hello sewing people of the internet. If you just clicked on this video to leave an angry comment, the title of this video is intended to be kind of a joke. Of course, anybody can sew anything they want. It's something I've talked about on this channel quite a bit, but I tend to sew manly or utility items, backpacks, messenger bags, duffel bags, and stuff. And this channel kind of started oriented at encouraging men who might not have been encouraged to take up sewing as a hobby to do so. But I'm kind of making fun of myself in this video, so relax. So in this video I'm going to do something completely different from what I normally do, and that is I'm just going to sew a very typical household sewing project that people have been sewing for themselves since the sewing machine was invented, and that is a set of curtains. These curtains are not for a window. I recently built this kitchen counter cabinet thing, and I intentionally did not put doors on it, but after seeing it with stuff in it, I was like, you know, some curtains would be nice just so it's not too sloppy looking when someone is in this space. So I went and got some fabric that, you know, closely matches, close enough for me. And I've already made this one. I actually need to redo it or hem it a little bit so it's a little bit shorter. But I'm going to make two curtains for the bottom level so that I can separate them. I'm going to leave the microwave exposed because that's the thing that I access the most here. And then I can just flip this up to get, you know, supplies from down there. So I just thought it'd be fun to make a pretty typical standard sewing project. And maybe you'll enjoy seeing how I do it. Never made a curtain before other than this one. Actually, many years ago I made some curtains for a VW camper van. That was a very different thing. Just to make a really basic curtain like this is kind of a first for me. And it was surprisingly fun to make. So let's go over to the table and I'll show you how I'm putting these together. So the fabric I'm using is just from a big box store. It's inexpensive fabric. I think it's cotton. And I'm not going to give specific measurements because if you're doing a project like this, your measurements will almost certainly be different. But I cut these panels 1 inch wider than the finished width is going to be. And that's so that when I fold in a double fold hem on each side, that's going to take 1 inch. So with the hems done, it'll be the width I want. We'll talk about the top and bottom in a minute. On the first panel that I did, I used double-sided tape to hold it down. Someone has asked me about this in the past, about whether or not I've experienced the double-sided tape gumming up the needle and causing skip stitches and things. And I don't think I have had that issue in the past, but with this material and the thread and the needle that I'm using in the machine that I'm using, this time I did have that experience. So I don't know if maybe with other fabrics or different thread or something, it hasn't been a problem for me. So I'm not going to use it in this side. And I have been using pins, which I really don't like using. But I've, through some experimenting, found that I can just use an iron to iron this fold down, and then it'll stay while I sew it. So that's what I'm going to do. I doubt you can see it on video, but I've taken this ruler, which happens to be exactly 1 inch wide, and just made a chalk mark with tailor's mark at the 1 inch mark, and then I can fold to that line and then fold again, and that'll give me a 1 inch double hem. For sewing this project, I'm taking a break from doing the long-term testing and evaluation I've been doing on the Singer heavy-duty sewing machine and going back to one of my favorites, my green Singer 201. I have a size 70 needle in it and just some standard polyester all-purpose thread that I bought when I bought the fabric at the big box store. By the way, this table is Sailrite's industrial style table for ultra feeds, and I've mentioned this in other videos, but these old Singer machines, a lot of the old Singer machines can just drop right in here. It's just sitting on here. I don't have the industrial style hinges attached to this machine. I could easily buy extra sets and just drop this right in here, but I don't really need it. I don't really need to flip this machine back, so I can just set it in here and use it. For the bottom edge, I did the same thing. I just marked a line at 1 inch. I'm going to fold to that line and then fold it again for a double hem. I don't know how well this is going to show on video, and I've confused myself a couple of times doing this, but just for the sake of argument, this is how this is going to work. So the finished length of my curtain is 12.5 inches. Your curtain will certainly be different, and your curtain rod will affect this if you're going to do something like this. But so I need it to be 12.5 inches. So I've made another 1 inch line. I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the other 3 edges. Fold to that line, fold it over again, sew it down, and that will give me a finished edge to protect the raw edge so this doesn't fray inside the curtain rod channel. And then after I've sewn that down, that'll bring the edge of the fabric to that line. I'm then going to fold that line to this line and sew it down, and that will make the finished length at this mark, which is 12.5 inches. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, I am interrupting this project because I got a question from a viewer, and I think you, this is my wife Jenny, if you guys don't know, are the best person to answer the question. And Ellen says that she's envious of my sewing machine collection and asks, how do I stay organized?
You don't. Yeah, he doesn't. We've got sewing machines at home, even.
Oh yeah, there's more over there. There's machines over there behind the bicycles. So
yeah.
So thank you, Ellen. I don't have any advice for you how to stay organized because I am the most unorganized person on earth. All right, back to the project. Thank you, honey. So the last step for me is just to fold this edge over to that mark I made. And I mentioned earlier that your curtain rod might dictate this. I need this hole, this opening, to be big enough for the curtain rod that I'm using. If you have a smaller rod, you could make it smaller if you want to make it a little bit more tidy looking. Or if you got a really big rod, you might need to account for that and have a much bigger opening. But this should work for the rod that I have. And I'm not going to bother pressing this flat. I'm just going to sew it now. Because the inside of this curtain is going to be inside a cabinet, no one is ever going to see any marks I make on this side. So I just struck a line to fold to keep this consistent. If this were going to be a curtain, inside a room or, a window or something, that might be something you would want to avoid having a visible mark. But in my circumstance here, it doesn't matter. Well, as you can see, that's perfect. I'm actually pretty pleased with how this turned out, actually. So there you go, breaking away from making manly projects to make some curtains. It was actually a very satisfying project. Hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, clicking like is always a nice thing to do. If you're not a subscriber, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. Check out the description below. There's some affiliate links. It helps me out when you buy products from those links. There's also a link to my second YouTube channel. I'd love it if you check that out. And also you can follow me on Instagram if you're into that sort of thing. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.